Question is, I do report progress. The Honourable Member for Moots.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. I'd like to reiterate some of the points in speaking to this suggestion or request from the member for Derwent. This has been a pretty unedifying process, all of this, and I think not for the first time Leadership Council is being treated with a bit of contempt almost, in that we were given minimal information at the outset. And then as it became apparent after most of us, and I think other members have mentioned this, did our second reading speeches, and I remember the member for Rosevere said it himself, that suddenly we should have had that information before we actually made our second reading speeches, because some of us would have made some potentially quite different speeches, or certainly made different comment in them. The Treasurer has also said that he wants a stable environment for the Joint Committee to do their work. Well, it's hardly created that. And there's been so much misinformation given. Like we were told that there was one application on foot for 20 machines. And I was attacked in social media for suggesting that I was supporting 60 new machines in Glenorchy. The first I knew about it was this attack that was going on. I also heard through the media that the Treasurer was hoping to hang me out to dry because of that. Now, this doesn't help with a collegial approach in this place in trying to get to the bottom of what we're dealing with here and fully understand it. So I'd like to see an end to that sort of behaviour and approach being taken by whoever it is that's driving this. We have every right in this place to seek information. We have every right to be sure what we pass through this place does what it intends to do and doesn't have unintended consequences or intended consequences we haven't been told about. So it's very tempting to support the member here, and because much of what we were told is not on the public record anywhere. And this is the problem we have time after time after time with our briefings. I appreciate the briefings, they're very helpful, very useful, but when you have really competing interests, contentious arguments, and all this public comment where people are being attacked or suggested they're doing a certain thing, then that's not okay. And we can't easily test one person's evidence against another. We couldn't say to the proponents of the venues that are in question here, how many machines are you actually applying for? How many could you apply for? What's the deal around that on the record? And we couldn't get, well, if you had a committee we could. That's what I'm saying. The point is that if you go to a committee you can do this. You could get the network gaming people in to talk about how the process really works, because most of us, including myself, did not fully understand that. Now, I should have done. I've been here a long time. I've sat on public accounts committees when we've looked at this stuff. The member Windermere's been on public accounts committees when and the president has been on public accounts committees when we've looked at the Ds with federal and we've looked at other aspects of this whole sorry arrangement. And I call it that because it is a sorry arrangement. We've got this terrible process where the person who actually gains the most, except for the government with their taxes, out of these poker machines is the final arbiter in whether you or not you can have a machine. And so looking at any competition and behaviour, well, and my real concern here is that I have a real issue with retrospective legislation that applies retrospectively. Yes, there was a policy position in March. No one denies that. We've had lots of policy positions made at pre-election and following elections in budget announcements that require legislative change. So we find that there's an expectation that they'll be automatically ticked off by this place. I'm sorry, as I mentioned before, we've got a pesky upper house that sometimes doesn't agree with your policy, regardless of what colour government is. And while you've got an independent upper house, that's always going to be the case, or predominantly independent upper house. So none of this information's on the record. We can't test it. We can't, so even for anyone out in public land out there who may be sad and tragic enough to watch this, what they can see of it or read it on Hansard, would not know why some of us may change our minds, because there's no evidence there to support that. So, and when we fully understand what the circumstances are in terms of how gaming licences are granted, what the process is for finally getting a machine if you want to use one. As I said before, I wish we didn't have any in the state. I don't see that any machine would really pass a community interest test. I mean, that people would claim they will, based on the fact that if you don't have something in there to raise a bit more revenue for the business, it'll close in a small rural community. But, well, that may be the only time, but I think surely we could look at other ways to improve the business's revenues. Anyway, but that's a separate point. But my problem is here that we've been boxed into a corner in many respects with dealing with a piece of legislation that does have a retrospective impact, that has a negative retrospective impact on at least one, if not two, proponents. Normally when from my personal perspective, when I support retrospectively applied legislation, it has a positive impact on people, like the First Home Builders Grant and things like that, where people would have been disadvantaged if they'd missed out. So this is a different circumstance, and we need to assess them all on their merit. So I first suggested that we should remove the retrospective nature of the legislation, then it was suddenly all about me approving poker machines in Glenorchy and wanting more there, which couldn't be further from the truth. And I'm sure if the member for Rumney's amendment, or if the member for Huon moves his, I'm not sure if he's going to now or not, but if they do, this House will be accused of allowing more poker machines in Glenorchy, even though I firmly believe they won't get them. Yeah. Because federal network gaming have the ultimate say, and will and they've already said no to Moona, and for reasons we don't understand, but we could have got them into a committee and found out, but we haven't got that opportunity. So it's terribly tempting to support the referral here to a committee to get this sort of thing on the record and actually get all the facts and know exactly what we're doing here, because there will be consequences, one way or the other. And also, and I'll get to, if we get to into the debate, and I'm saying this now in case we don't, Mr. Chairman, if the support is there for the honourable member for Derwin, but if we support the bill as it is, I believe we will potentially deny the proponents who have got a gaming licence application on foot the right to try and take legal action against network gaming should they refuse to deliver the machines if they get a licence and pass the community interest test and they still say no. Well, sorry, don't pass it. If they go through now and their opportunity's lost, if we support the amendment, they'll have that opportunity because their gaming licence will be considered, and you would assume approved, because as far as I can understand, they've got a suitable building and they've already met the fit and proper person tests with other facilities around the state. Now, I could be wrong on that, but that's how it seems to be. So, rock and a hard place, that's where we are. Again, yeah. And I take a bit of umbrage at some people suggesting, without the full knowledge of what's going on, because there's nothing on the public record as to whose fault this is. A bit sick of wearing the fault in this place. So, Mr. Chairman, I think I'll listen to other people's contributions on this. But it's been a pretty unfortunate process. We're dealing with this on our last sitting day for the year, so the pressure's on. You know, get it done, get it sorted. Otherwise, if we delay, as the leader rightly said, if this is delayed, there could be another 10, 20, 30 applications for poker machines, not just in Glenorchy, anywhere around the state. I don't want to see any more, anywhere around the state. So, what to do? A difficult question, but I'll listen to the other members. But it's a difficult place to be. I can see both sides of this story really adequately, and even when I sat down with representatives from Anglicare and the Mayor of Glenorchy early in the week, I think I did that, they could hear where I was coming from as well, even though they have their own view and quite a quite a strong view about the poker machines in Glenorchy. For the Mayor of Glenorchy, but in Glenorchy, but for Anglicare and Tasco's representatives around the state. But they realised that it isn't an easy position to be in. The last thing they needed to do was to criticise me or anybody else in this place who may put forward an amendment to try and fix the retrospectivity, because that's a legitimate role we have in this place, and we should do it properly.
The question is, did I do report progress?